I'm on a cosplay Charlie from Has Been Hotel. This is her final episode version, so I'm just gonna kind of walk you through it. A small little tutorial, my little red dress. So this is everything you're gonna need, minus the zipper. The zipper is only if you cannot have a stretch fabric. I got an existing top that fit me pretty similar to how I want the arms to fit me on Charlie. If you don't have this, you can wing it on a mock-up and just trace it out while it's on your body. Here I'm just drawing out with chalk. I added some extra inches on these sides just so I can always take it in if it is too big, and I pulled it down a lot more for length just because my shirt is a crop top and I need this to fit closer to my hips. For the neck, I just kind of found where the seam is and I kind of just brought it down. I start with the back of the neck first, so that way when I do the front, it does tend to extend down a little closer. You'll see here that I have to cut off extra, but that is just on the front layer that I'm only doing this to. So here I am just pinning all the sides that I'm going to end up sewing. You want to use a zigzag stitch on my machine. It's number 3. Just because you want it to be able to still stretch. If you don't do this, you may rip some seams when you put it on. And that's kind of how it fits on me. Here I am finding the lowest point where I would like the skirt to sit on. I prefer it slightly below where my curve is, whether you have a high curve or a low curve, and then I just cut that off, and I'll be adding the skirt to it. So here I am, snip, snip, snip. Once I have that all happy, I start pinning the armholes, just a zigzag stitch around it, and just pin it. Nothing too fancy here. Now I'm just starting on the neck part. So I just fold my fabric over so it's easier to cut a longer strip. And for me, I prefer to use an 1.5 inches just for my neck. I don't have much, so smaller the kind of better. And here I'm just showing you guys that like the 1.5 inches is cut on a fold. So that means if I unfolded it, it would be about 3 inches, I believe. If my math is correct, I'm really bad with it. So here I'm just marking the back of the neck, the middle point, because that is where I'm going to have my seam kind of behind it. So you're not going to be able to see it because I have a long wig. Once I have that, I just start pinning it, and again, this will be another zigzag stitch. Once everything combined, I just sewed it off so that way it's just a simple seam in the back. Now I'm starting on the skirt. I use a circle skirt method. There's plenty on YouTube that explains more of this process. I fold my fabric twice and I just kind of place an existing one. You can measure out your own measurements just because this is not the proper method. Here I'm just measuring how far I want the skirt from my seam point to be going down on. I know circle skirts can be quite intimidating, but it is so useful for cosplay to know how to do this. After I was done cutting this all out, I marked the gunk of my shirt where it goes on my spine. That way, if I made my circle skirt a little too big, I can always taper it in and it'd be just one seam line going down following your spine in a way. So again, once I finish pinning that all, you just want to zigzag stitch because this is the most stretchiest area. Here I am taking it in a little bit, so it's good to have mobility. 1.5, and the black I extended it to a 2-inch, I believe, or a 2.5, just so that way the black does actually peek through. So I'm pinning everything together going the wrong way, so that way when it folds you won't see the seam line. So write fabrics together first, if that makes any sense. So once all that's done, I just sew it with a normal stitch. And there you are. You can see that layered effect. You could also replace it for lace if you want to add your own personality as well. So here I am marking where I want the buttons to go. I'm using stars because her name is Trelly Morningstar. Like, it's such her personality to add stars. So I just sew those on by hand. Nothing too special, just avoid sewing it to the back. I did make that mistake twice by accident. And there you go, the stars are on. I am wearing an underneath shirt, so ignore that little seam line that kind of looks weird. So now I'm starting to do the heart. I first measured how far I want it to be, like approximate, and I go right to my Cricut machine. Now you can just buy the vinyl and cut it out by hand. You do not need to actually use a Cricut machine. So for me, this is the kind of dimensions that I ended up using. You don't have to do the same exact measurements. Each body is going to be different. You just need to make sure your width and your height is an estimate. So here I am showing the iron on. And we get to cutting. So I put the shirt on just because it is a stretchy fabric. I wanted to make sure that I didn't iron it on without knowing where it stretches. So once I pinned the plastic on, I just ironed it on carefully. And that looks so perfect, and it lays flat. Again, you can cut this by hand. It does not need to be a Cricut machine. And that is my Trelly Morningstar, and I hope this tutorial did help. I am also like cutting out the sleeves, but this went a lot messier for me.